Hey, it's Spence from WP Launchify. I've got another great question in about from Bernie from KPI Tools, Black Belt, about how to actually bypass the default LearnDash way of organizing and presenting courses. He wants to have something that's a much more efficient way of showing any course content, whether it be the courses or the lessons, in a grid, but that allows somebody to have a better control over where people are sent. Now, let me show you the concept. On the back end here, if we go to LearnDash and we go to the courses, let's just see what we're working with. The default course tools are really tedious because they were from a different generation when we didn't have the page builders. And so they had to provide a lot of things that are no longer necessary, but also are a little redundant. So we have these various modules here. And if somebody wanted to see all of these are actually courses. He's calling them modules, but they're courses. Inside of each of those might be individual lessons. That's relevant because let's go into one he's not working on. If we edit this, you'll see it'll have in the course builder a list of the lessons. What I like to say is let's pick the first lesson if that's where you want people to start. Now, I don't know if Bernie was asking me if there's a dynamic way to take people to where they want to go. There are components for that, but let's go with the assumption no. If we go over here into the, move me out of the way, go to the builder. We have material. Actually, in this case, there are no lessons. So Bernie's doing something interesting, which there's nothing wrong about it. Each one of these seems to be self-contained. So if we go back to the courses, let's instead see if there are any lessons. And he may have just renamed them. No, it's lessons. Let's see if any of these lessons are associated with these modules. Because my point is, if we wanted to send somebody directly into, let's say, a course module, we might take them to lesson 1, right? So I was working on module 1. How did you find this? If I click on the view, this is the URL that I would use for the link, right? And by the way, this is a nice setup we've got where Bernie's using the focus mode for all of his stuff. So this would be the link instead of the course description page where I would send somebody. Pay attention. Okay, now I'm holding on to that. Let's say we want to display a grid. The better design tool or the better way to do this is to just make a page. I don't know if he's got one already, but we're going to start from scratch. Just make a regular page. It does not have to be an element where we're going to hold this grid. And you can move this anywhere you want because it's going to be a pattern. So it's universally applicable. Bernie has organized his stuff in a way that is not good for me, good for him. It is good for his brain. It's not good for me because I can't find pages. Okay, front-end content pages. Let's make a new page. And this will just be, we'll call it Spence Grid for testing. Whatever you call it, it doesn't make a difference. And the style of the page is your choice, but let's say if we're going to do a really functional one, we'll choose something where let's get rid of the distractions of the header. Let's use a normal layout. Whether it's boxed or unboxed doesn't bother me. Let's just do Spence Grid of courses modules. Okay, here's the magic. We are going to use one of the Gutenberg components that allows us to put in posts. Now, we could also create a WP query custom. If we were to type query, we can make a custom query loop along with the necessary layout and stuff, but it's not necessary here because the reason that we're going to do this so simply is because we really just need the basic stuff, the featured image, the title, a read more, and a link. If we wanted to customize the components that were showed, that's when we would make a custom query loop and a custom card that gives a different design. But instead, we're going to type posts, and here's what you can choose from. The original old-fashioned granddaddy OG posts, post grid carousel, or there is another one. If we type advanced, it doesn't show up. I'm going to go in here instead because I forgot what they call it. There's posts, there is post grid carousel, and portfolio. So if we wanted something that was like really visual, we could do this with a visual I think we're going to choose post grid carousel because Bernie wants a grid and that has the more modern controls anyway. Once we do this, we could choose a style. Let's choose the minimal style just to begin with. Here's the magic. You have to go to the right-hand side. Choose, by the way, let's look at the tool here. Let's get rid of the unused paragraph. We can put this, by the way, and should put this inside of a row just to keep in line with Spencer's recommendations. So add before, we use a cadence row layout. We're going to make single, and I always, in most cases, make it max width from theme. That way I can drag this into that container and I have much greater control over a lot of different things, trust me, rather than letting it sit there on its own out in the open. But with the post grid carousel, now we go to the right and we choose which post type. This is very important. We're going to choose the courses because what we want to do is list out all of those modules that Bernie has created. Now we have options. For example, we can exclude certain things. We can use pagination if there are a lot of them. We can say how many items to show on the page. Let's say 12. We can do the layout settings and the image settings. Let's do the layout. I want 3 columns. Okay, I can adjust the gap to 40 pixels and the row gap to 40 pixels. I can show an image if it has it. Now here's the problem. He probably doesn't have the featured images set, but when he does, those will show up if I want, and we can say, where do they want to go? Let's put them on the top. Okay, what's the ratio? We can use the inherit from what he uploads, or we can force that. What I've now got is a really interesting arrangement because now I'm able to send folks to that particular thing. Here's where the problem is. The problem is that as it is right now, these will take them to the title page of those courses. There's no way around that unless we were to customize this. And the reason is because let's say if we go to any of these, hold on. These are outputting the default title, the default date, the default meta items. We don't have any override for that other than to hide it. So look over here. Like if we don't want to show the excerpt, we can get rid of that. If we don't want to show the title, I don't know why, we don't have to show that. But we don't have anything that allows us to program into the content itself, except for maybe something like the read more, show read more or not. But there's nothing about this right now that is overriding it and going to the first page. But let's just take a preview of this anyway. And I don't want to mess with Bernie's content, so I'm not going to add, let's say, module 1, 2, 3, 4 featured image. But if we were to go over to those, I'll show you where that is located. If we go to courses, let's say module 1, there is the option here. It just has to be set. And again, you could just have the same image if you want to just have a placeholder that says, you know, KPI black belt or something. So inside of this, typically under the course, you just need to set the featured image. Oops, that bounced on me, sorry. Let's try it again. I don't know what just I clicked on, sorry about that, course page. Go over here to featured image. And again, let's just set one so that it will appear. This is not necessarily a good one. Hold on. He's got a really good one. He's got to organize. So here, KPI black belt logos. It should be the right format. These are all kinds of odd shapes. So I'm looking for a rectangle. I'm not finding it. You're going to just, let's bear with me on this. Let's just use this for now. It should be the same shape and size. If I were to save that as the featured image, and then I go back over here and I refresh, then for module 1 at least, that will show up. And by the way, we have the ability with this post-grid carousel to also do organize by order, custom query. So you can do a lot of things here, but you can't change the core content. That has to be done at the content itself. So let's change the order because right now module 1 isn't being shown. So newest to oldest, let's just do A to Z. See if that helps. And so now you see the first stages of this happening. Now this is where I would go into the image settings and I would adjust this. I would typically change the image ratio to either a square or the ratio of the images I'm going to use. Like maybe it's landscape 16:9. You can use the proper image file size so that you're not doing too much, too little. And there's also probably size of the image and some other things you can do here. Okay, the image padding, that's inappropriate. I'm not even sure why that's there, but you get the gist of it. I'm not trying to make this a design tutorial. This would give the very same thing you want. And then you could, of course, do like styling, make a border around it, box shadow, right? Depending on what you want. You might want to style this bad boy up a bit. I might do something like this. Yeah, maybe a little subtler. Okay. And then this is where the padding would be useful because obviously whether it be for the image or the content, obviously you might want to have the border padding. Here's where it is. You want to have it, give it a little space around the edges. So I might use this thing, ta-da. Okay, let's take a look at what this looks like. And then I'm going to address how is it we're going to be able to customize the content to address it to the first page. I think a programmatic approach would be better, but we'll find out. So again, here's the grid. This is not finished, but you get the gist of how you might do this. You could definitely go farther because we have tools like in Kadence that would allow us to output this and have faceted search, but just at the basic level, let's see what happens when we go to module 1. This is going to the course page. Okay, now, if you follow what Bernie's doing here, this is actually probably enough, and my advice to go to lesson 1 is unnecessary because notice what he has done. He has not shown any of the buy now stuff. He's not showing like how much does it cost. He's just essentially summarizing the course, which is great because then you could just jump right in. Notice it said 0% complete. But in order to get in here, there would still have to be something on this page to get you in. So this is where we could put the benefit of the lesson 1. Where am I going to put it? Well, a couple places. In this case, I would probably put it at the bottom of the course page content or the top, or you could put it in the header. Let's look at all of them. First of all, he's got some very unusual, and I'm not sure why. This row layout, he did a nice job. I could tell he styled it, but I think we need to do an alignment adjustment because, first of all, his colors are all like weirdly transparent. But notice if I roll my mouse over this box to this box, see how there's just too much stuff at the top? There's 2 reasons for that. One could be that the alignment vertically, but the other is probably that there's padding in there. There's some gigantic padding that just doesn't need to exist. So sorry, Bernie, I'm overriding you on this one. And now if I roll my mouse over, I've got a more subtle thing. And then here, I'm going to move that to align in the middle. Let's see how that works. Second of all, I'm going to just do the thing we talked about. I'm going to say add a button at the bottom, and I'm going to use buttons from Kadence. This is not that much more work. Start lesson 1. Okay, and then for that, I'm going to add in the link that I took originally, way back when, from module 1, lesson 1. Let's see what this all comes together looking like. So what I've effectively done to review is that I've used an independent pattern that can be as simple as just on a page because we're not customizing the nature of the things we want to show. These are just default. But we're using the course pages, making sure they don't have any of that fluffy stuff like buy this or do this. And instead, we're streamlining the content on them to just show the basics we need. And then we're adding a button if we want so that when somebody gets there, they can immediately go to start lesson 1. Okay. So now I see what he was doing with that padding. So let's just adjust that slightly, benefit of the doubt. I am not sure what is going on, why this is not previewing here. I do not have an idea. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to bear with it. Let's adjust this padding just slightly. And we'll go XL here, XL here. See if we like what that looks like. And that can be adjusted by Bernie. I'm just making trouble for him. Okay, looks nice. You could put lesson 1 up there, but instead, look, I got this, read the message, click start lesson 1. jump on in, kids. We're ready to go. And so our problem is solved because if we look at this page, even though it's called Spence Grid, we have any way we want to of getting somebody. Let's go to module 1. They're going to end up going to the course description page, which has just what we need, and conditionally or otherwise, start lesson 1. Conditionally meaning if they are otherwise able to see that page because you've not hidden it, then you don't want them to have a button that starts something they can't get to. So one of the things you could do on this page is this page itself could be conditionally displayed. And this is the nature, by the way, of what we can do either at the level of, let's do the grid. Hold on. This grid could have conditional display of the content. How? If you made use of the FluentCRM and WPFusion, the output of these available modules could be conditional on whether somebody has access. You could also individually adjust each one of these modules manually. So you could go in and you could use manually the WPFusion tools on the sidebar to allow somebody to see this or not see this. But I wouldn't do the two of these independently. You have to use one or the other. On the actual course builder page, you have the WPFusion. Users must be logged in, and we could say they need a tag of some kind to see this. Don't do that along with this. The way that we're doing it here is that Bernie is actually using the WooCommerce sell a product enrollment method, which is a better way of going. That is, the only people who have access to these modules are those that have already purchased the product, and that enrolls them, and they will only see these if they're enrolled. So I just want to let you know there are ways to like modularly and granularly control independent things or just the whole thing. And you can do it with marketing automation using the CRM and WPFusion, and in this case, WooCommerce launch flows, by selling the product. Okay, that's for another lesson. I think this has hopefully made the point. There are lots of cool ways to get the job done, but you don't have to use all of the features of each plugin. Sometimes, and in fact in LearnDash especially, we abandon and get rid of and run as fast as we can from any of their design tools because they're really, really not designed for the modern set of things that we have available today. They were in fact designed just a few years ago before page builders were ubiquitous, and it had to have all these builder design tools in it that are just not as easy to use as the stuff we've already got. I hope this helps. This has been my masterclass on customizing a LearnDash course grid using the tools in Minute Launch. I'll see you on the next video.